Welcome, everyone. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we have a mission to change the world one brave word at a time. And here today to help me with that mission are some of the most amazing authors of a new book that we have coming out called Sacred Spaces: Subtle Shifts for Mind, Body, and Home Transformation. And before I introduce you to these lovely ladies, let me just say a huge thank you to our lead author, Colleen Avis. Colleen, thank you so much for bringing this stellar author cast together. And you really had a huge mission for this book. And I am grateful to know you and grateful that we're all here talking about this amazing topic of sacred spaces. So ladies, welcome. I'm happy to see you today.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
I'm excited to introduce you to our three authors today. Ann Keating is a culinary creator and founder of Can't Beat Plants, which focuses on helping people develop a healthy plant-based lifestyle. Christina Kaufman is a trauma-informed yoga teacher, mental health advocate, and CBD advisor, empowering others by sharing tools that care for all the layers of one's being. And Lisa Rankin is the executive producer at Fortune Media Group, Inc., creating visual and brand content, digital marketing, and award-winning productions. Yeah, you guys feeling the power of the women I have in my Zoom room today? I hope you are. So, okay, so we're going to start this party with Ann. Tell me about the amazing chapter that you wrote.
Oh, well, thanks so much. It's funny because I feel like, so my chapter is titled, When Life Hands You Lemons, Take the Hint. And I feel like for me, when I started to write this chapter, I had an expectation of what I was going to write about and how it was going to go. And then I started to write it. And just kind of like the rest of my life, the best laid plans somehow take a turn. I was going through life and everything was fine. And then I was diagnosed with cancer. And there wasn't really like a 1 second where I kind of felt like, oh my gosh, this is completely life-changing. It's sort of a journey, and I share the story in my book. It's not an aha moment of here's how I'm gonna take those lemons and make lemonade. It was more a process that I worked through. And there was kind of a culminating moment where, yes, I made that shift and I went plant-based. And when I did it overnight. It wasn't, I'll ease my way into it. I just decided that this was what I needed to do for me. This was what I needed to do at this time in my life. Maybe this is what the universe was telling me I needed to do with this diagnosis. And I just went for it. And I spent a lot of time researching and reading and just throwing myself 100% into learning about becoming plant-based and what that meant. And there's a big difference in being plant-based and eating Oreos because they're vegan, and then in a healthy approach to plant-based. And so I kind of, spent years perfecting this. People, often will say to me, so what do you eat? What do do you live on nuts and seeds? Yes, I do. But I also live on a lot of other things as well. My diet is probably more varied than most people's. And I've become, as a result, a more adventurous eater, and playing with spices and herbs. And so for me, writing this chapter kind of took me back along that whole journey of how I ended up where I am and doing what I'm doing. And it really helped me not only share with everybody, but sort of remind me of, yes, it was a horrible thing to be diagnosed with breast cancer. And it was not an easy journey for me. I had a lot of ups and downs on it. It's probably everybody who's ever been diagnosed. I've never heard talk to anybody who was diagnosed with cancer who was like, oh yeah, it was a breeze. It's like, everything went according to plan. It was beautiful. But there were a lot of ups and downs. And for me, I feel like it was all part of getting me to where I am. It was all part of me becoming who I am today. And I hate to say, I don't ever want to say I'm grateful for the diagnosis, but in an odd way, um, it really did change my life for the better in the end.
Listen, having been plant-based for like a 7-day detox and doing it cold turkey as a lifestyle, I mean, I think that takes some form of a warrior. It's not easy. There's a lot of planning. There's a lot of thinking about it. There's a lot of education, right? Tell me a little bit more about that. I'm just like stuck on your, I did it cold turkey and just did it.
There is, and honestly, I did it wrong at first. I was really, it was almost like a detox, because I was like, what do? I eat nuts and I seeds and I juice. And I didn't have energy and I didn't feel good, and everything was such an effort. And going out to eat was a complete nightmare with the rest of my family who are not plant-based. It was, I was just like really miserable a lot of the time. But I had to figure it out because I wasn't going to go back. So I figured it out quickly. And what I figured out was it really doesn't require as much time as people think. And I've learned over the years, and this is what I work with people doing. If you read every recipe out there, and there's so many vegan bloggers now and vegan recipes, if you read all these recipes, everything is buy this flour and buy that, and you end up with a cabinet full of ingredients that you use one time and then you don't know what to do with the rest of the time. Or you try a recipe and you say, oh yeah, no, I didn't like that one, therefore I don't like any plant-based. So what I've tried to do is help people refine it down a little bit. How many flours do you really need? Maybe 3. How many types of canned goods, or how many types of, what are the basic ingredients? What are the basic herbs that you should have? But the biggest thing too is eating seasonally. We often get stuck in a rut, and we find, okay, I like this dish, so I'm just gonna keep making that over and over. I'm gonna churn it out every week. And it's easy if it's roasting a chicken every week, because that's not seasonal. But all of a sudden, when you're trying to keep your diet varied and have energy and strength, and you have to eat seasonally, because that's where all the nutrients are. And that's what's going to, sustain you through each, and then it changes your diet and it keeps it interesting. And you can still have a couple, really good recipes tucked in your back pocket for when your mind just doesn't want to function and you have to get dinner on the table. But if you can add in the seasonal things, and if you can kind of have these staples that you have, it really becomes much more second nature, and not as stressful and as crazy and as expensive, quite honestly, to go out and buy all these weird ingredients that nobody's ever heard of before. And they have one job, and that's it.
Thank you, Anne. Anne's chapter, and thank you to all 3 of you for stepping up with a chapter that not only shares an awesome, amazing, real vulnerable story about who you are and how you got to what you're doing, but then you all are master teachers. And so you're coming up in the second part of these chapters with things that our readers can put right into practice. And I know you all are going to love reading Anne's chapter for that reason. I also love people who can make things that seem complicated to me easier. So I love what you just said about that. So Christina, how about you? Tell us about your amazing chapter.
Hi, Laura. Thanks for having us on here. And I'm just so grateful to be on this journey with such an amazing group, honestly. So my chapter is number 8, and it is titled Shadow Work, Finding Light in the Darkness of Trauma. So clearly it's not a light read, but trauma is actually one of my favorite topics to study and learn about. I feel that everyone is impacted by it at a certain degree, even if it's not realized. And because it is so heavy and has some stigma around it, it can be easily dismissed and somewhat just kind of downplayed, I guess, in certain situations. And so what I focus on in my chapter is how repressed emotions and unprocessed pain can rule your subconscious and really create these underlying imbalances, both physically and mentally. And so I share my journey to emotional freedom and how it began when I turned towards and shined light on the parts of myself I was hiding away for so long. And I feel that a lot of people can relate to that, because when crappy things happen in life, life doesn't pause, it goes on. And so we try to do our best to keep up with it. And so one of the easier ways to do that is by sweeping something under the rug or placing it in a box, putting it at the back of the closet. And so I kind of just shed light on the concept of shadow work, which is the path of kind of unboxing that and exploring unprocessed pain and emotions. And that can look a little different for everybody. So I share like a very general way of kind of getting started with facing strong emotions. And yeah, it's kind of, I guess, the gist of what chapter 8 is about.
I appreciate this topic and come from the Debbie Ford book, right? The Dark Side of the Light Chasers, if any of you have read that or know that one, and some other work as well. So I know that a holistic approach to healing includes shadow work. I always thought that we should rename it though to light work. Like we just flip it and call it like, because, you know, so talk to me a little bit more about like when I feel like I want to use the word acceptance. When you're accepting all parts of you, then what? Tell me more about that.
So I really came to the work that I do and what I'm sharing right now through yoga. And so what it looks like by taking care of all parts of yourself is tapping into each layer. And it really looks different for everybody. But it's a practice every day. So when I say that it looks different, by taking care of, like, I guess, your whole self, it could look by using different tools such as reading or therapy or yoga. There's just a lot of different ways it can look. And so I feel like that journey is very unique, and it's important that no one's journey is gonna look the same, because everything that we've gone through in life creates and plays a part in who we are in the present moment. And we're all unique in our own ways, in our own story.
This is exactly why I'm here doing these books, y'all. So, because everyone might hear what somebody says, and not everyone who hears it is going to hear it in the way they need to hear it. So Christina comes along and writes about this topic, and all of a sudden she says it the way that I need to hear it, right? The light bulb goes off. And that's why these collaborations are so important to me. There's a lot of people in the world, and you all know how this works, right? You could hear an idea 9 times on 9 different people, and then the 10th person comes along and you're like, whoa, I just heard something new, right? It's because you had to hear it the way they are expressing it. That's what I love the most about this. So trauma work, oh my gosh, yes. If you're listening to this and you've tried 10 different things and you're still feeling a little down about none of those things being as effective as you hoped, there's always going to be another way to look at this, right? So thanks to all of you for including your voice and your strategies and your way of expressing all of the ways. It's really, really important. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you.
Lisa, tell us about your chapter.
Sure. My name is Lisa Franken, and my chapter is chapter number 2, and it is on the art and science of manifestation and creating your own dream life. And so I start my chapter with the well-known expression that life is a journey, but I am a big believer that we have many different journeys in one lifetime. And with that being said, when I was asked to be a part of this collaboration, I saw it as a spiritual calling, because writing is really a form of creative expression. And I wanted to share my story openly and candidly, and most of all, wholeheartedly, and be as vulnerable as possible. And so I begin my chapter, speaking about my highly dysfunctional childhood and the trauma suffered during that time. But more importantly, how I channeled that energy into something positive and how I healed. And of course, want to, be able to share that with others so that they could see that there are many different ways to create your dream life through manifestation. I am a big believer. And so I share my top tenets in manifestation, whether it be releasing limiting beliefs, which are so important, or meditating and connecting with source, whatever that means for you, tapping into a higher power, affirmations, journaling, and vision boards, and coming to it with a loving heart, service, and gratitude. Because I am a big believer that it doesn't matter where you've come from or where you're at now. We're all seeking the same things. We want to live a life of passion and purpose, and we want it to set our souls on fire, and it's possible for everyone. So, I believe that we all have the ability to create that for ourselves, and we just need to learn the disciplines and the tools. And so hopefully I've been able to convey that well in my chapter.
Manifestation, such a juicy topic. I love this topic. So for me, the key, the secret is understanding and being able to choose a higher vibration. And I know you get this piece. Tell me a little bit more about that piece of manifesting magic.
So, and I love that you use the word magic, because to me, manifestation is alchemical magic of thoughts and feelings and speech. But most importantly, it's about taking action, right? We can't will something just to happen into existence. We really have to take action on it. And so that's why having different disciplines so that you can live a high vibrational life, because we are all energy and vibration, and you will attract what you're putting out there. So it's about having that awareness. We all speak about awareness, and being able to self-excavate, go within ourselves to understand what's blocking us. A lot of things happen during the formidable years of our life, from womb to age 8 years old, and it's like a download. And it's about learning how to reframe and to create new beliefs about yourself. And once you're able to really do that, I think you have the ability in which to be able to soar.
Yes, you do. I love really opening people's eyes to the possibility. Honestly, I feel like sometimes we are literally waking the world up to what's possible in terms of this kind of magic. And all y'all's magic, like all of the things that you're teaching, these topics are amazing. I know we could talk about any one of them all day long. Okay, so Lisa said something about awareness, and this is honestly probably my all-time favorite topic in the world. So I'm actually going to pop back to Christina and start this question with you, Christina, and I'm coming around to all of you with this one. Awareness is everything. Awareness is the key to understanding healing and transformation and our sacred spaces and all of it, right? So I feel lucky that I've had a life dedicated to this, but a lot of people haven't. And I want them to benefit from this. So would you share a little bit about what your awareness practice looks like? Just the practical things you do in a day, maybe an idea or two?
So that definitely, I try to bring awareness and mindfulness to all parts of my day, but I feel like the one that kind of really relates to the words that I've written as well when it comes to awareness is pausing, when it like listening to myself and like listening to the emotions that I'm having. So on a daily basis, I try to slow down. So whether that's starting in the morning with my 10 minutes of meditation or breath work, allowing those thoughts to kind of just simmer down for a moment, bring awareness to how I'm feeling. And I do that a lot in my yoga classes as well. When we start by centering, I invite my students to notice what's coming up without trying to resist it. And that could be physically, mentally, energetically, but just notice. And then we can move forward with a response rather than a reaction in any part of life, really.
Yeah, the pause is so important. Yes, Christina. Oh my goodness. Okay, so Lisa, what would you add in terms of how you practice? giving our listeners different ideas, right? So, and it's so hard to go last on this question, Anne, sorry. I know, that's why I'm giving you all a chance to go first and last and second. But so I would assume that all of us would be like, yes, Christina, I use the pause too, right? So I'm going to say to Lisa, what else? What's another thing that you use?
So just to preface it, to be able, for me, to, in my healing process, I became a perennial student, a voracious reader, and I got certified in, I went to law school and I realized, ooh, I want to make a pivot. This really isn't for me in my third year of law school. And so I studied biofeedback and got certified in that, and neuro-linguistic programming on how to reframe thoughts, and hypnotherapy. And those tools helped me. It was a catharsis for me, the same way writing is a catharsis for me. So certainly I agree with Christina. Yes, breathing exercises are so important. The inhale is as important as the exhale, and really it's an important facet to be able to calm yourself down. But also for me, being out in nature is a very important way for me to recalibrate myself. So, I grew up in the Adirondacks. I love the mountains, but I'm living here in sunny Florida. And so I love the salt life, and anything that has to do with water is a way to help me really get back into a centered space and remember where my real passions lie, not to allow all the distractions, all the unwelcome guests in my head. I allow them to quickly disappear because I try to reconnect with source. That's what really works for me.
I love that one too. Of course, I'm in love with all of these ideas. That's such a big one for me. The woods for me. And if I can just give myself enough time with a walk in the woods, usually the poems come through, which is amazing. Okay, Anne, how about you? How else do you practice?
So it's funny because when I'm developing recipes, I'm very aware of the taste, and it's tasting it and trying to, can I taste all the components? Can I slow down enough to, it's almost like a sommelier, right? Where you're smelling and you're tasting and you're really engaging all of your senses in what you're doing. So for me, the awareness, and I have to say, it struck me too, especially with COVID and the three of us in our house, we would sit down and it was like, and the meal took 6 minutes to eat. And I thought, this is crazy. We need to slow this down. So the awareness has to be, for me, all encompassing. It's not just putting the food in or the one sense. It has to be kind of a combination of all the senses. It has to be giving each one its own little space to share with you what it wants to share.
I love that. One of the very first mindfulness exercises I did at a retreat was an exercise where she had us each take an apple and have the sensory experience from start to finish, so that we're not just going to eat the apple. We're going to first look at the apple, and then we're going to smell the apple, and then we're going to just put our tongue on the apple for before we take a bite. And I loved that exercise. I loved slowing down. I had to laugh when you were saying that part about looking at the watch to see how fast the meal went in. Like, oh my goodness. Yes. Okay. So I've got this next question for all of you. Lisa, I'm going to start with you for this one. What does a sacred space even mean to you?
No, that's a great question. I think anywhere that you create for yourself a sanctuary that becomes an extension of you, a place where you feel safe. It could be your home. It could be out in the woods, the way you like to walk and have your catharsis and write poetry. It's any place in which you're able to get back to your center. That is a sacred space for me. And I find that in many different arenas, and I'm thankful. And living in a state of gratitude creates a sacred space.
Okay, so you answered part of what I was going to ask you next. How do you know you're in that centered space? So gratitude was part of your answer. You can feel the gratitude, but how else? Give our listeners an idea of how they would even know they're there.
Everything is based on our feelings and emotions, right? And so when you're living, I believe, in a high vibrational state, everything feels good, whether it's the food that you're eating, the music that you're listening to, the people that you're speaking to, it radiates, it glows, you feel lighter. And when you're in what is more a low vibrational state where you might be feeling shame or guilt or what have you, that doesn't feel sacred. That feels unholy to you. So I think you intuitively know, especially females, we intuitively know when we're out of balance, and getting back to our center again requires different disciplines, different tools that you could use, whether it's meditation, whether it's forest bathing, whether it's sitting down and writing and journaling. It's utilizing all of the different tools that I think will be found in this book to help you get back to that centered, balanced place or something close to it.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. How about you, Anne? When you think of a sacred space, what does that mean to you?
When I think of a sacred space, it really comes down for me to one word, and that's joy. It is the place where you are happiest, where you feel complete, where you feel just, this is right, this is joyful. And it is something that you can turn to when you maybe are not in such a good space. You know, you always have this place that you can go to that will ease your troubles a little bit, that will bring you back to you know, just a center of joyful living.
Joy is so important. That also has a feeling in me. What would you say to someone listening in terms of helping them to describe the feeling?
So, you know, it's funny because there are days when something is going on. I mean, you know, as somebody said a little while ago, our life is not just one thing, and it's not really just one journey. I think it was Lisa, right, who said that and so, you know, you do go through periods where you maybe are not on such a good part of one of your journeys. And there's days where honestly, I just kind of think there's so much going on and maybe things aren't going well. And I don't even feel like getting into the kitchen. I don't even feel like, and I know that that's my happy place, but I don't feel like it. And so sometimes for me, it's maybe just putting a toe in. It's not going in with the expectation of it has to be this big thing, or it has to be like hours spent, or I have to, it's sometimes it's just dipping that toe in and even going in and doing something very simple, something that I've done before, not trying to necessarily, you know, be super creative and light my world on fire, but just reminding myself by doing something small that, you know, this is my happy place. This does. And it's not going to cure my problems, but it reminds me that there is more than what's maybe going on and bringing me down a little bit. It reminds me there's something happy.
And of course, you know, the subtitle of the book is Subtle Shifts. And so you're making me think of that small little stepping stone. Could just something small and subtle might just be enough, you know? Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Anne. Okay, Christina, I'm putting you on the spot with this question because I'm going to change it on you.
Oh,
and I haven't done this to anyone yet, but for you, it just came to me to ask. So Christina, if I'm in my shadow space, is that sacred to you?
I think it can be. So the shadow is, it's not a part of us. It's not separate from us once we get to know it. And so I think that when I think of a sacred space, I think of this vessel we're in, our bodies. And so, yeah, I think that this idea of sacred is this feeling of wholeness. That's the word that comes to my mind. And so when you tap into all of the parts of you, I think that, at least for me in my experience, I now hold those parts of my life in a sacred way, where I used to kind of hide them away. Now I actually allow them to empower me. And that's what I'm hoping to do with what I share, is allow others to shine light on all that as well.
That's why I asked you that way, because I really believe that in the worst, we're judging it, right? That's the problem. We're judging our moments as good or bad. But honestly, if we just detach from the meaning and stop adding meaning to the actual feeling we're feeling in our body, then we can sit with that experience as sacred. Mm-hmm. There's a sacred experience to be had in the middle of that. Is there anything else you want to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, just to add to what you said, honestly, one of my favorite affirmations is I am, and with nothing at the end, just I am. And so to kind of create space around all these stories that we have around our emotions and all these different parts of our life, I come back to this I am, and that's it. And I am in that moment. So.
Perfect. Yes, I am. That's it. Enough. In all of our imperfections, we are perfect. Yes. Okay, ladies, I have one more question for all of you, and I'm going to start with you for this one, and it's really for the listeners. You all are amazing at empowering your clients in whatever ways they need, right? And I think as health and wellness practitioners and healers, we know that authentic healing happens when it's not about us fixing people. It's about us guiding and facilitating the journey for somebody else, about empowering them. So, Anne, I want to know a little bit about how you empower people, and speaking to the listener right now who might need a little oomph. What would you say to them?
So, power doesn't have to be a surge. It can just be a small little spark. And that's all it takes. And if it's for me, the plant-based, it doesn't have to be what I did. It's not all or nothing. And it has to be right for you, and then the way that you do it. So it's about really, helping people take that power and saying, this is my path on this. Maybe it's not going to look like hers. It's not going to look like somebody else's, but this is how I'm going to do it. But the biggest thing for me is people are very overwhelmed by feeling that they have to do that surge. It has to be all or nothing. It has to be so big. You have to go to Whole Foods. You can't just go to your local Publix or your local Safeway or whatever. And so it is about helping people find there's power in everything, in everywhere. It just doesn't have to be, we're not trying to blow the top off the volcano on day one.
I think that is incredibly empowering. Okay, not that we don't love you, Whole Foods, but like if I can just go down to Giant and go to the organic section and get a few things, and you're right. So I believe part of what you're saying is that all of the shoulds and supposed tos are what feels so overwhelming, rather than just listening to ourselves.
Exactly. And there's good days and there's bad days. And there's days where you just have to give it up. But it's a journey, and you just subtle shifts, small little steps, and it's not as overwhelming as it doesn't have to be as overwhelming as it seems.
Definitely not. Thank you, Anne. Christina, how about you? What would be something you might say to our listeners who are just would like to feel a little more empowered today?
I would say that every part of your journey and everything that you feel and know about yourself is valid. And not that you have to hear it from me, but it's something that I try to share with anybody that I have a conversation with, is that you have all this power within you. And the way that you tap into it is going to be through your own introspection and self-awareness. And so trust yourself that you do have, you know, everything that you might be looking for outside of you. And yeah, just one day at a time, practicing self-compassion, and that would be, I think, a good place to start. Just start small and just little by little keep moving forward.
Perfect. Thank you, Christina. And Lisa, you are going to close out our little party today. What would you say?
Well, I'm a big believer that everything is within us, right? We have all the power within us. And Christine, I'm going to piggyback on what you're saying. I think that a lot of times people give up their power because they're looking for things outside of themselves to bring them joy and happiness. And it's when you get real with yourself, when you find that awareness and you're willing to do the work. If you really want to take a quantum leap in life, you need to be able to go deep within yourself. And like I said, uncover, unearth all of the things within that have been blocking you from moving forward. And that really is about shedding those limiting beliefs and believing that you're not enough and you're not worthy. I like to call it that critical bitchy voice that comes into your ear to make you feel less than. And finding ways to love yourself, you know, through self-care and pampering, and having mentorship. Finding people that can guide you, people that have been through similar types of experiences that really do understand. They can empathize and understand. And if they've been able to overcome, you know, take heart that you can do it too. We're all part of the totality of humanity. And so embrace who you are. Your kaleidoscope is all of the aspects of who you are. I feel no shame or guilt about anything that has happened in my life. It has taught me so many valuable lessons to make me the woman I am today. So releasing all shame and guilt is certainly a part of that, of empowering yourself. And it's so liberating as well. Be real, be your authentic self, and scream it from the rooftops if you want, because that's what it's all about. It's living life on your own terms and being true to you. That to me is true power.
Thank you, Lisa. So how cool that I'm going to maybe riff off of what Lisa said and about that reaching out and getting support, right? So there are a few different missions we have for the books like this that will be coming out soon. Sacred Spaces, Subtle Shifts for Mind, Body, Home, and Home Transformation, right? But the part of the mission was that you might read the book and have an experience with one of these chapters. Both the story and the tools sections can give you those very powerful experiences. But you know how when you get to the end of the book sometimes, and then it's like, well, now what? Well, these beautiful ladies are your now what, right? You just have to scroll down into those show notes because I have you hooked up with all of their websites, and they're very generously there to continue the conversation. Maybe you heard something today that you never thought about it that way before, or you're interested in learning more. Well, they are up to some awesomeness in the world changing kind. So go explore, have a click, see what they're up to. Authors, thank you so much for what you do in the world and for being here today to share it with everyone.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Laura.
And for you all, please remember that we are going to have a live stream book launch party on January 4th, 10 o'clock Eastern. I'm going to gather with all of our Sacred Spaces authors. We're going to be doing some fun giveaways that day, and you're going to find that live stream on the Brave Healer Productions Facebook page. I have you hooked up down below with that too. And if you're listening after that date, well, then get over to Amazon, because that means the book is ready for you and you can grab your copy. And lastly, today, everybody remember, your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. So it is time to be brave. See you next time, everyone. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.